So let's start with a comic book riddle. What do you get when you have the deterioration of distribution, closure of specialty shops, sky-high pricing, and an eternal reliance on gimmicks? Well, according to the comic book industry, that's apparently the formula for success. That's right. Apparently, marking your prices up when you have problems is the best substitute for going out and actually taking the pandering and politics out. No wonder we're having failure on all fronts. So hey there. So today we are returning to comic book numbers to talk about what 2019 heralded, and here's a hint, it heralded more of the same. Now, when you look at these numbers, though, you have a lot of people trying to celebrate them because 2019 saw more money being made for companies than 2018. In fact, this is noted right off the bat in this sentence. Annual comic book sales in the comic book specialty market increased in 2019 by nearly 4% over 2018, while graphic novel sales declined by 2% for an overall increase in print over the previous year by 2.23%. Now remember, those numbers are two specialty or comic book shops. They're not two consumers. We see a pass-through of somewhere between 40 and 61%, just to give you an idea. But what they're saying here is compared to 2018, we made 4% more on single issues, 2% less on graphic novels for a combined total of 2.23% more. So they made more money. Now, they had less demand, but they made more money. Now, how did they get there? Well, what we need to do is examine the top comic books and the top graphic novels to give you an idea for it. So when you look at the top 10 comic books for 2019, you'll notice right off the bat 3 milestones, one of them being a fake or a facade. This is artifice. This is not a milestone, but it's trickery and people bought in. And then 7 other number ones. Now, what I mean by artifice here is Marvel Comics 1000. Remember, there's never been a Marvel Comics countdown to a specific number. In fact, you can see how this is talked about. The first issue of Marvel Comics Winter Event, Marvel Comics 1000, a special issue celebrating the 80th anniversary of the publication of Marvel Comics number 1 in 1939. So basically, they just said, hey, we're going to go out and celebrate the 80th anniversary of something. They just pulled a random number out, they slapped out a comic book, and you know what? It slapped it out into the top 10. Now with that too, you have a price tag of $10. In fact, you'll notice 2 comic books are setting at that number. 2 of them are setting at $7.99, a few at $5.99, more at $4.99, and only one at $3.99, which is the bottom level for comic book buying. So you'll notice Detective Comics 1000 as well is at $9.99. And one of the problems with this is that comic book shops, they cannot return these things. So say you buy, a stack of them. Yeah, it counts in these numbers. There were 600,000 of them moved to comic shops, but I have 2 comic book shops around me that have them on sale. One of them is trying to sell them for $1.99 a piece, and if you buy 2, you get another cover for free. So yeah, 3 of them for $4. Now, when you look at Spawn 300, this was something that was a huge milestone. In fact, I don't want to take anything away from that, but if you look at the price on it, again, it makes the point of, wow, this is the standard price of comic books now. Now, when you look at the number ones in this too, X-Men number 1, Black Cat number 1, Deceased number 1, Absolute Carnage number 1, House of X, Power of X number 1s, and War of the Realms. Well, when you see all of that, how many of those have any collector value? None of them, really. Deceased out of that was actually a pretty interesting story. I like something like that. But still, none of these have any long-term value. They're just something that ends up spit out by the comic book industry. And that, yeah, can it move? Who knows? Now, when you look at the graphic novel levels, something else should stick out, and it should really, really worry the comic book industry. There's the fact that the number one comic book is 35 freaking years old. That's right, Watchmen going in with number one for the year, 35 years old. And this is a problem that you have throughout the industry. Older comics are moving, while newer ones, you don't even see them listing. I mean, if you look in here right off the bat for old comic books, you have The Killing Joke as well coming in at number 9. So you have 1 and 9 owned by that. You have 3 that are owned by the Batman titles here. But then you start looking and you notice, wow, there's a lot more of these that aren't new commodities. Saga, for example, not a new commodity. Umbrella Academy, Volume 1, again, not a new commodity. Same thing with Monstrous, Volume 1. You have this play out over and over again, telling you that there is a problem when it comes to this industry. And the problem is that there's not a lot of hype around new books. There's not a lot of people that want to go in and pick this stuff up again and again. There are only certain books out there that people really want to invest in. And when you think about that, that's got to be disconcerting. Now, when we look at where the comic book industry is setting as well, this should be no surprise as far as ranking. What should be a surprise to people are seeing Image Comics drop off. I mean, after The Walking Dead left, they lost more of their market share. IDW is also dropping off. In fact, if you look at the way that the comic book industry sets up, the game that the top tier companies are playing is hurting everyone else. You see a wash down effect where you have all of these companies being damaged. None of these big companies that care about that either. This is basically a cash grab for Marvel, in my opinion, where they go out, they kill distribution with your specialty shops closing at an alarming rate, and they don't care about that at all. Now, when you look at the other numbers in this, I mean, you get a breakdown of what Marvel did. They had 7 comics in the top 10 because, again, they are in the renumbering game. You have 2 of them belonging to DC. Again, with Detective Comics and Deceased, which they did earn the Detective Comics 1000. They also earned the Action Comics 1000. They earned those back to back, year to year. So I can't take anything away from it. I can take away for price tag, but I can't take away for that. Image Comics, they had 1 in there with Spawn 300, as we discussed. IDW, their biggest comic book was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 100 at 66, and then the rest of them for Falling Apart. But it gives you an idea of where the comic book industry is setting. Now, for me, like I said, one of the things that's really telling in this is they never discuss demand for books, because demand is still down. If you start looking at that again and you start asking questions, what you see is an industry that is not solvent. You have problems out there, and those problems, they don't just relate to people moving on to other mediums. No, what they relate to is this medium forgetting its consumer, and when you do that, you're going to have nothing but problems. But anyway, you tell me what you think about this stuff. Now, ending this just briefly, I want to thank you for showing up and participating. You make these endeavors possible. These folks, they forget that all the time, and hey, woe be it unto them. You know, if they want to forget who empowers them, that is their prerogative. I do not want to be like that. So if you want to help out this channel, subscribe to it, go out and help with interactions, but you just being there helps out too. So let me end by saying thank you. I do appreciate you, and we're going to do this again soon.